everyone and welcome to another video. I hope everyone's been doing well. It's been a very busy last couple weeks, probably the last month. I've just been flat out, which is why video uploading has sort of been a little sporadic. These pickup videos have come out pretty much on time, no problem, but everything else I just haven't really had time for, so I apologize for that. Hopefully going forward I will be able to improve on that, but for the foreseeable future, if I can't manage it, I just can't manage it. But as always, the pickup videos will be on time. At the end of the month, or next week actually, I'm going to be in South Korea up until the end of the month. So whilst I won't actually be at home or in the country, it won't actually impact the pickup video because I will be getting home pretty much the day of or the day before that video is due. So yeah, my typical upload schedule for pickup videos should stay the same. If not, it just means I've been too tired after a week of fun in Incheon. But rather than take too long, there's not a huge amount to get through, so this is going to be a shorter one. But I'll just get straight into it, and I hope you guys enjoy. So first up is a figure. After a long time of not getting any figures, last pickup video I did get Victor, who I showed off. This pickup video I have the Alter 1/8 scale of Sosuke Yamazaki from Free. So he's just the next one in the line of the boys. I already have Makoto Haru and Rin, who were released previously, and I do actually have the other two on order, Rei and Nagisa. So yeah, finally this took forever to come out, but that's pretty typical for Alter. So yeah, just nice to finally have him in the collection. So next is the only anime that I got for this part of the month, and it's the third single volume for Fantastic Children. This was released by Bandai in the US. It does have a dub as well as subtitles. I previously had all the rest of the singles. There are 6 altogether. This is the only one I was missing, and I have watched the first 2. I'm really enjoying it, so I'm glad that I can now continue with this series. It's an interesting, weird sort of sci-fi series about these somewhat immortal, unaging children. It's more so implied that they're within this constant cycle of reincarnation. So every 12 they only live to be 12 years old, and then their memories are sort of stored, and then children that resemble them, or they're reborn into this world, and then at the age of 5 or so they gain consciousness of their past lives. And then it's really interesting, and they have a bunch of knowledge about the world beyond what people like normal humans can tell, and so they're sort of trying to protect that. And then yeah, there's a lot of different things going on, sort of somewhat different forces trying to find out more about these children or stop these children, or find out what's going on with these children. There's a lot of stuff going on, and yeah, I've been really enjoying it. Also, as a lot of people mention with this show, the soundtrack is phenomenal. The first volume actually had a limited edition release that came with the soundtrack, and it's definitely one that deserves it. The music is really great in this show. Next on to manga. Okay, I'm going to start with sort of a story. I ordered this, as well as the next thing I'm going to show off, when it was first made available, or when it was first announced. And it only arrived to me today. Like, I literally got the package for this probably 10 or 10 to half hour before I started filming. So it's been 3.5 months. So everyone complaining about slow shipping, you got no idea. But that is the epilogue for Olein. This was an exclusive from TCAF, which is a Toronto sort of comics festival. A lot of comics creators go there and sell their books, and it's just a really, really great thing for all sorts of genres, all sorts of creators, all sorts of books. And this year, Inio Asano was one of the guests, so in order to promote that or just like celebrate him being there, the actual festival or convention itself printed this as sort of an exclusive that you could buy at the event and either, you know, whatever, just collect. But they did put it on their website for sale afterwards. And as I said, I actually ordered this pretty much the day that the website put it on order, or put it online so people could order who weren't able to make it out to Toronto. So that was a very, 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 very long time. I mean, I ordered mine before I even shared the news about it. I'm pretty sure I ordered it within the first hour of those sales going live. So yes, I've been waiting a long time for this. It's not a full volume, as you can obviously tell. It's just, I think it's roughly, you know, 40 odd pages of a epilogue to Asano's probably most well-known and beloved series or title, Olein, and it's set 10 years after the main events of that series. I think it is really a great follow-up. I did get a chance to read it, but I do think it's suited to the fact that it does give sort of more of a glimpse into these characters' lives after the fact, and it just continues this hopeful message that Olein really does end on, even though things are tough and there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. As long as you keep, you know, working towards it, you don't have to necessarily have a goal, but as long as you keep working towards something and living and just experiencing things, you know, eventually you'll find something you want to do, or eventually you'll find some sort of happiness or satisfaction, which I think some of Asano's other works are a lot less hopeful. Asano has a very obvious style and theming to a lot of his titles, and I do think that's why Olein is probably the series or title that a lot of people start with and get into and make them fans of his, and then maybe are a little bit shocked when it comes to some of his other works. But yeah, it's a great title. I'm sure most people have bought this, have already received this, so most people would already have it. It is still available on TCAF's page, so yeah, it's still available. If you wanted to buy your own copy, you can still get it. So yeah, I'm just happy to finally have this. And in the same package parcel with Olein, I actually got another one of the exclusives from their website, and that is Carmen. This is an SM doujin, so SM is a very well-known, somewhat influential BL mangaka. They have quite a few titles available in English, and they were a guest at this festival a couple years ago now, I think, but this was the, again, events exclusive comic that was available for patrons, for people who went. This one is shorter. It is printed much more like a doujin. Like you can tell it's made for like a lot of the comics that are at the Toronto Comics. Is it Toronto Comics Art Festival? I don't remember. A lot of them are sort of self-published works, so effectively doujin. And this is just like the truest sense of that. It is again in English. It's for a American or English speaking audience, and is really good. I think if you're a fan of STEM, it's definitely an interesting one to pick up, because it is a lot more focused on a lot of their work is focused on sort of darker aspects of love. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. Maybe not for everyone, but I did enjoy it a lot. And if you haven't picked it up and you are an STEM fan, it is one to maybe keep an eye out for, and is again available on the website, so you can pick it up there. It's not expensive. I think Olein is like $10-11 US, or maybe Canadian dollars, I don't remember. And this one, when I bought it, it was like $5, because it is a couple years older. So yeah, not a huge investment. If you're outside of the US or Canada, it's probably shipping is the biggest investment, and I chose the slow shipping, and as we have learned, that means it takes 3.5 months to get to Australia. But yeah, I do think it was well worth the wait. I'm happy that I finally got them and nothing got lost in the mail, which was my biggest concern. But yeah, so I'm just going to keep going. Now on to quote-unquote proper manga. We have a couple titles, quite a few actually, that I bought secondhand. The first being volumes 1 and volumes 2 of Key to the Kingdom. So this is a series that I had in my pickup video last time as well. I picked up 4 and 5 then, so I'm just missing 3 and 6. It's a 6-volume series, quite short, fantasy from the early 2000s, and released by CMX, I believe. And so this is about somewhat of a race to leadership, I guess. The king and the crown prince, the oldest prince, die in a battle against some neighboring country, and the news of their death obviously causes a stir within the nation. The younger prince has been chosen to rule the country, although he really doesn't have a want to. But his brother confided in him something. He said, like, if I die in battle, I want you to go here. You'll understand when you get there. So he wants to follow the instruction that his brother gave him, and additionally, the older brother also asked his friend, who is the sort of like top knight, to protect his younger brother in case anything happened. So, because the younger prince really doesn't want to become the ruler of the country, or at least he doesn't want to in the capacity that means he's under the scrutiny of like a council of elders or any of that sort of thing, it opens up this race for anyone who hopes to do it. Anyone with sort of royal blood is invited to try and find the key to the kingdom. And then if they find it and sort of unlock its power or find its mystery or whatever else, they will be granted, the new leadership of this country. So we also have a prince, we also have a couple we have the prince and this knight who are now trying to find out and figure out sort of the secrets to the keys of the kingdom. We also have a princess who is somewhat of a friend of this young prince. We also have a couple other dukes and things who are hoping to seize control. And in addition to this, within the country itself, there are people known as like Dragonborn, or yeah, I believe it's Dragonborn, where they look like humans, but they have strange powers and they live an incredibly long time. There used to be normal dragons on the land, but they've since gone extinct after many a war between nations. And so the dragon kind, or the Dragonborn, are now somewhat of like this rare oddity. Nobody really understands them. So it's pretty interesting. I've read the first volume. I'm hoping to read more. And it is really definitely, like, it's not anything that is super revolutionary, but if you like pretty interesting fantasy settings, if you like this sort of race to find out a mystery, if you like a lot of very different characters and settings, then this is one to maybe check out. It's not a huge investment. As I've said, it's only 6 volumes long, and that is the series in its entirety. So yeah, I'm hoping to get 3 and 6 whenever, although it's not a huge priority for me right now. But yeah, it's been pretty good. Next is a new book, although it is older, like it's not a new release, and that is volume 15 of Kazuhiko. This is just one. This is the only middle volume that I was missing, so I now have 1 to 20, and then I also have 22 and 23 in like library bound covers or versions. So there's 26 volumes that are out in English already. I think the 27th has already been solicited as well. So this series comes out very, very, very slowly. And if you know nothing about this, I think it's technically a shoujo title. Some would argue that it's more of a josei, but it's an incredibly long-running manga in Japan. I believe there's 40-something volumes out in its original language. As I said, we only have 26 of those, and the release, like the publishing schedule, is very slow. It's about 1 volume per 12 months. So we see 1 book a year. And it follows a young girl who joins the Shinsengumi sort of at its inception, pretending to be a boy, and in order to avenge the murder of her father and brother. And in the process, she sort of falls in love with a historical figure, Soji Okita, who is sort of like really well known for a lot of like these Shinsengumi history nuts. He's regarded as one of the best swordsmen that was ever part of the organization. Real person, obviously. This is sort of just like a historical based manga, so it's like a twist on what actually happened, actual true events. And it's interesting reading the sort of afterword by Taiko Watanabe, who writes this, in how adamant she was in order to make all of this series historically accurate. It's really interesting. I mean, again, there's a lot of very in-depth detail and world building that goes on in this series. I think it's definitely one that flies under a lot of people's radar, but it is one, if you're interested in this sort of period of Japanese history, especially if you want to know more about like the Shinsengumi in Kyoto and sort of what was going on, and sort of the unease within typical Japanese society comparatively to like the government officials. It's really interesting. Of course, it's also, being a shoujo or like a josei, it does have like a romantic element to it, but this series, as I said, is 40 volumes long. It's definitely a slow burn. You wouldn't go into the series hoping for a lot of instantaneous satisfaction in that regard, so don't go into it. But don't go into it expecting like, oh man, it's just gonna be, you know, blushy-faced girls getting upset or like squeeing over the hot guy in every chapter, because it's not that either. It really is sort of a slice of life, day-to-day log or following of the Shinsengumi, and so it does have this quite easy-paced slice of life feel for a large part of it, but there is also, because it was such a tumultuous period of time, you do also have a lot of like large fights, a lot of battles and things that are covered in this manga. So it does have quite a bit of death and blood and all that as well. So if that's something that interests you, maybe check it out. A couple of the earlier volumes are harder to find, which is why I wanted to pick this volume up sooner rather than later. But yeah, I'm just happy to be getting this sort of periodically. I haven't fully caught up with the series yet in English, but I'm up to about 12, so roughly halfway. I wanted to wait to get this volume before I continued on till 20, and then once I get 20, I'll continue on with the last, you know, half dozen volumes. So finally for manga, I have another series another couple books that I bought secondhand. This is a series that I only have one volume for, but I do know the series thanks to its anime adaptation, and I managed to get these for a pretty good price off of Better World Books. So I managed to get a good deal, and I did want to pick up this series, so I just, you know, when I had the opportunity during a sale, I just got them. And that is the series number 6. And so I have volume 6, volume 7, volume 8, and volume 9. And volume 9 is the last one of this series. If you don't know anything about the series, this is the manga adaptation of a light novel, which is sort of a dystopic sci-fi series set in the future, obviously, about two young men who, there's somewhat of like there's a definite class divide between sort of the wealthy and the poor, and you have one young man who is grown up in this like bubble of safety and wealth and utopia, really. And then so you have Shion, who is this guy here, and then you have Nezumi, who is him, who comes from sort of the slums outside of the city, because there are these city structures where people live in like comfort and excess and all of that, but outside of these cities there are just slums of people who don't have those opportunities. In childhood, Shion managed to save Nezumi from being like recaptured. He managed to break into the city and was on the run from authorities, and seeing another young kid in peril, Shion sort of invited him in and didn't tell authorities or his parents, and so they have somewhat of a personal bond from childhood. They reunite many years later, I think about, I don't know, 5 or so years later, 5 to 10 years later, and obviously they've grown up, and Shion finds himself in a lot of problems when he sort of realizes that his happy life is definitely an illusion and there's a lot of other stuff going on. So he manages to, I don't know if escape is quite the right word, but he finds himself in the slums and has to sort of rely on Nezumi for protection and for, you know, his own survival. And again, they sort of reconnect and try to figure out what is going on, what all this shady stuff is happening in the country. The light novels, I believe there's quite a few of them. There's also an anime adaptation, which I'm sure more people are familiar with. That was done by Bones probably 8 years ago now, which I really enjoyed. It was definitely a divisive series when it came out. I think it would be a little more accepted now since we have had other series, because this series does have a homosexual relationship in it between our two main characters. There's nothing ever explicit, but it like insofar as like physical intimacy, but it is obvious that our main two characters do have like a somewhat romantic relationship between each other, that their friendship is more than just friendship. And at the time, 2010, 2011, when the anime first came out, that wasn't the norm. And I think because this series is so heavy on the sci-fi dystopic elements, a lot of people had like plausible deniability in the series until our main characters kissed, and then they couldn't deny it, and then people got upset. Plenty of people didn't. I think a lot of people are rational, but the anime community, there's definitely an immaturity about it, and we saw it again with Yuri on Ice. We see it a lot with titles that don't have a clear-cut, you know, BL label to them, or yaoi label to them, but like with Yuri on Ice, like with some other titles, this I wouldn't classify as that, although we do have a homosexual relationship with our main characters, like the main characters are gay, or bisexual or whatever else. This is a manga that I've wanted to pick up for a long time because I highly doubt that we will get the light novels. If we do, I'd be very, very happy. I know there's also a follow-up to the light novels, like a sequel, so I'd be excited to read either of those. But for now, if you are a fan of this series, really the only way to get it is from the anime or the manga. And Kodansha put this out. It's been quite a while since this series was being released, but just the fact that it was makes me quite happy, because Banana Fish number 6 doesn't have the most active or vocal fan base. Even when the anime was airing, even when this manga was coming out, I don't think a lot of people were talking about it. So yeah, I am happy to now have these in my collection. I do need volumes 2 to 5, so 3 or 4 volumes there, but then I'm done. So I have read volume 1, and I have seen the anime, so I do know the story going into this. I don't know how far this series, I honestly don't know how far the anime adapted the light novels. I think it was almost all of it, although it was sort of like a very rushed hodgepodge mix of events, trying to cram in as much novel stuff as they could. I think this manga adapts what was in the anime. I don't know if they've added stuff or gone further or whatever else. I couldn't tell you, but it is a really interesting series, and I'm glad to have more of it, or have the opportunity to read more of it. As well, I'm not always a huge fan of like manga adaptations of light novels. I prefer, if there are things that come from a light novel, to read the light novel. It's why I never picked up more of the Spice and Wolf manga and the various other like isekai stuff, manga adaptations. It's not that I don't think these series can't work in manga form, but if it's written for prose and if it's available, I prefer to have the light novel. But again, this is sort of a case where I don't think we'll ever get the light novels, unfortunately. I don't even know if they've been completely fan translated either, which is sad. But yes, it's probably a series that a lot of people either know about or have heard about, or if they haven't heard about it, they're not really that interested in it. But yeah, I've been wanting to pick up more of this for a long time, and the sale at Better World Books just gave me more encouragement to finally pick up some of these volumes. Well, that's everything I got for the first 2 weeks of September. Up until yesterday, I only had these 4 things here, so I actually received all of these and these 2 books today. I was kind of worried that I wouldn't have a huge amount to show off. Not that I'm wanting like a long, big stack of books to show and a long video. But I mean, in this video, there's not a single new release. Not to say that I don't have new releases coming, because I definitely pre-ordered stuff for this month and that have been shipped to me, but they just haven't arrived. My mail has been getting slower, I think, recently. I don't know quite why, but there was a noticeable lack of mail these last 2 weeks, which is quite unusual for our house. And not just because of me, but for other members of my family too. But it definitely was a surprise that I didn't get any of the new titles that I was expecting this week. And yeah, so as for the next video, it will hopefully be out on time, and that one will definitely have new release books in it. The stuff that I pre-ordered and have been, newly released within September. I'm looking forward to a lot of them. There's a conclusion or a concluding volume that I'm really excited for. There's a couple debuts I'm really excited for as well, so hopefully I'll be able to talk about those when I get them and have the chance to read them. And so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions or comments or opinions on any of the things that I showed off today, or you want to tell me what you've bought or what you think, let me know. I also have, as always, in the description, my Twitter, link to my Twitter. I also have a link to, or an affiliate link to Book Depository, which is where I buy all of my new manga, although I didn't get any new manga in this video. And there's no obligation to use it if you don't want to, but for me personally, I always use Book Depository for new releases because they are so good, both with price and with their free worldwide shipping, which makes all the difference. But yes, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye till then.